Pop Cult Pod. This is a broadcast from an undisclosed location in Ireland known as the Pop Cult Compound, where they're crazy for film, television, video games, and much, much more. Speaking now will be the cult leader, Tompott, the host of the only podcast with an actual cult following, the Pop Cult Pod.
People keep asking if I'm back, and I haven't really had an answer. But now, yeah, I'm thinking I'm back.
Welcome back. I guess I should be welcome back because it has been a hell of a long while. I said I might take a week off, maybe two. I guess I lied because it's now the end of May, nearly the start of June. It'll be almost exactly a month since I last put up an episode. So you'll probably ask yourself, if you are listening to this, what the hell happened? What have I been up to? Why the long delay? Well, originally I took time off for a few reasons. Let me explain where my head was at, and hopefully this will be an insight into the hopefully continuous improving of this podcast and anything else I stick my finger into. Ugh, that was weird. Alright. I wasn't very happy with the way the podcast had developed over the last few months, I'd say. It was a case where I felt it had gone away from what I wanted it to be. I always wanted this to be a discussion of the news and film, television, video games, and then also a feature, a topic talking about certain issues. Be them film related, television, maybe some film history, maybe just a thought I had. It felt like the show became a review show. And that's obviously my fault, of course, but what it came down to is that I put a lot of effort into making some of the features early on. And as deadlines approached to try to get the episodes out, it got harder and harder to reach that deadline. And because of that, I think the quality dropped to a certain degree. I don't think it was bad. I think there was still some good stuff there. But I felt like the reviews were there. They were a bit overlong. And it just felt like the show was not something I wanted it to be. It just felt like, nothing, you know. It was just, hey, let's review this movie that came out this week. And that's not very fun. It's not very exciting. So what's changed, I guess, in the time off as far as the podcast goes? I don't know if I can say this is going to be weekly anymore. Maybe it often will be. But I'm not going to make that promise anymore because I'd rather take the time to get it right than to get this out constantly. I have a lot of features I want to get to. I might take a bit longer to get them finished at times, and that's fine too. I can always cover up the news. I had a lot of features in the last edition of the podcast. Some of those might go. Some of them might be reformatted. I just felt like things were a little bit of a slog. So I'm hoping that in general it's going to be a tighter show. That being said, this probably won't be because I've, a month behind. I have a lot of stuff to catch up on. And aside from that, what I've been doing the last month has been putting a lot of more effort into the YouTube channel, which, if you're listening to this and you haven't checked out the YouTube channel, you're really missing out. I think the YouTube channel is probably where my best stuff is at the moment. The reviews have been going up on the YouTube channel and they're a lot shorter, more succinct. And I'm going to put some more stuff on the YouTube channel, including features and some more stuff that might not even make it to the podcast. So definitely check out the YouTube channel if you happen to enjoy this. So I guess that's all our old business covered. We should move on to new business. And unfortunately, I will say that we have to start with a death. And that is the death of the Cool 8. The consistent, probably most consistent segment from the previous version of the podcast. Top 8 news stories from across the mediums. I'm going to retire it. Or repurpose it. I might use that title somewhere down the line. Maybe not in the podcast, maybe on YouTube, I don't know. But I just feel like trying to get to 8 news stories every week, sometimes it's a stretch, sometimes 8's not enough. I just think it's a lot better if we just talk about the news. But we're going to call this segment New News. New News! How could you not have missed this? Okay, New News. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to cover everything that happened in the last month, but I'll probably cover some of the bigger stories. Maybe not the ones that happened so long ago. There's no point in me talking about minor stuff now, but let us talk about first some of the Disney dates and delays, because there's a lot of stuff came out here. Some stuff we should just discuss in general, I think, regardless of whether it's new news or old news or whatever. Okay, Star Wars movies. There was, of course, talk that there was going to be a big break between Star Wars and they're going to give it a chance to rest for a while. And now we know officially that the rest period is going to be 3 years. After Rise of Skywalker at the end of this year, there's not going to be another Star Wars film until 2022, which is going to be the start of a new trilogy. Now, here's where things get interesting, if you call it that. We know that there's 2 trilogies in the works. Or there was. Rian Johnson, of course, who directed The Last Jedi, had a trilogy in the works, and David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, who, of course, were the showrunners on Game of Thrones. I missed all the controversy about Game of Thrones as I was away. We might get into that at some point. They also are apparently working on a trilogy. So the question is, whose trilogy is this? Everyone seems to be saying, more or less officially, that this is the D.B. Weiss and David Benioff trilogy. Which would presumably mean that Rian Johnson's trilogy is dead. Because otherwise we're going to be waiting at least probably a decade for it. At least. What we do know is that the way they're going to schedule these Star Wars movies is that it will be every second year. So December 2022 for the first one, 2024, 2026, etc. I wonder though if there's presumably the Rian Johnson trilogy being dead is from the reaction to The Last Jedi. The reaction to Game of Thrones hasn't exactly been glowing, and maybe they're just hedging their bets and hoping that by the time this comes out that that'll have died down a bit, but I suppose you could say the same of Rian Johnson, no? And if Rian Johnson's latest Knives Out comes out and is really good, maybe they'll regret it. I don't know, you never know. We have no real idea whether or not the Johnson trilogy is dead, or if maybe he just had no interest in going near Star Wars again. I mean, could you blame the guy after the way people received The Last Jedi? So the question now is, if they're taking a gap year by year, what's going to fill those gaps? Well, we know. And it's a recent Disney acquisition, Avatar. Because Avatar 2 has been delayed again. Wow. This film, I think, has been... it's been meant to come out every year now. For 5 years or something ridiculous. They keep delaying it. It was meant to come out 2020. That was the most recent date it had. And Avatar 3 would have been the year after in 2021. And then Avatar 4 in 2024, Avatar 5 in 2025. The new dates they have are, with the next one is arriving in 2021. So Avatar 2 is in 2021, meaning that we'll get an Avatar film before the start of the new Star Wars trilogy. Then we have Avatar 3 in 2023, Avatar 4 in 2025, and Avatar 5 in 2027. So it looks like we're going to be getting Avatar films for another 8 years. Who's not to say that Avatar 2 won't get... Avatar 2 got delayed a lot. I'm exaggerating a bit. But I'm pretty sure this movie has been meant to come out 4 different times. They just kept moving the dates. Now, they're saying it's technology and that kind of thing. And who's not to say that those films won't get delayed? The sequels. I don't know. It's really hard to get excited for Avatar 2. I like Cameron. And he's almost the master of the sequel. I didn't like Avatar. And you have to hope that he's got something up his sleeve that's going to make this movie amazing, but I don't know. You should never... you say you should never count out James Cameron, but I don't know. By the time Avatar 2 comes out, it'll have been 12 years since Avatar 1. Then again, Avatar, as of this recording, I should say, is still at top of the box office, which I don't know if we're going to talk about the box office too much. There's definitely less than we used to. But at the moment, it looks like it's going to be very close between Endgame and Avatar. I don't think Endgame is going to get it. I think it now at the moment is under 100 million away from hitting Avatar's record. I don't think it can hit it. It'll need a big push from somewhere. But it's very impressive, obviously you can't take away from Endgame's run, and you can't take away from Avatar's run either. I see people saying that. Don't get me wrong, Avatar had a lot of things going for it that make it top of the box office. The 3D price bump, and considering it had basically very little competition, and Endgame's had massive competition lately. You can't take away from either of those films. They're just products of different time, you know. I think people just don't particularly love Avatar, or at least a lot of people don't. And you know, Marvel are the big deal right now, so. When that first Avatar movie came out, there was 2 Marvel movies. Imagine that. That's so weird. That's how long ago those movies were. Jesus Christ. Alright. Also on the Disney schedule are a lot of live action or remakes of animated films. We have some dates here. Mulan, which is one I will say actually, I'm not really looking forward to most of these. I think Mulan could work though, so I'm excited to see that. It's going to release on March 27, 2020. So, not too far away really, when you think about it. The first one of next year. They also have Cruella. This is one this is an awful... Look, I don't love 101 Dalmatians, but Cruella de Vil is a good villain. There, you know, like, they have Emma Stone attached to play Cruella de Vil, and apparently it's like a kind of punk rock glam chic movie or some crap. What, they're going to make Cruella de Vil sympathetic? Like they did with Maleficent? People really didn't like that. You're going to do this with Cruella de Vil. When you make her sympathetic, there is nothing to that character. And people, I don't think people are going to want the true version of this character, which is basically, hey, this woman skins animals. Woo! It's hard to reframe that, but I don't know. Emma Thompson is also in talks to star in that movie. We don't know as who. That's a movie I could not give a shit about. Like Dumbo, I'm like, oh, maybe I could check that out eventually at some point if I was on a plane. Cruella, I don't think I'd if it was on in my own sitting room, if the premiere was on in my sitting room, I probably wouldn't go to it. Unless Emma Stone was there, maybe. That would be a weird scenario, wouldn't it? Anyway, that's out December 23rd, 2020. They have 8 live-action Disney films dated between 2021 and 2022. Now, there's no guarantee that all of these are, you know, live-action remakes of their animated movies. There could be some other stuff in there that we don't know about, but they're not Marvel movies, for example, not Star Wars films. These are live-action Disney films. I think we should have a look at the ones they are working on, as in the adaptations they are working on of their animated movies, because there's some good ones there, and some bad ones there, and there's something I find interesting, which we'll get to, right? So, one we know is in the works is actually going to Disney Plus, Sword in the Stone. That could work. Maybe. I mean, King Arthur isn't exactly a hot property after that Guy Ritchie movie. Pinocchio is coming. I can't even remember anything about that one. I don't think that's the Guillermo del Toro Pinocchio, which sounds much more interesting. Hunchback of Notre Dame, we've talked about that one before. I think that one could work, but I think it would need to be a bit more than what the animated movie is. Maybe go towards the novel, the Victor Hugo novel could help. Lilo and Stitch, yeah, like, that movie's not that old, but I think it suits itself more to the live action treatment than a lot of them. The Little Mermaid, yeah, again, I think that could work. I'm just not very excited about it because I think it'll just be exactly what all these Disney movies are so far, which is the exact same thing. If you're not adding anything new to it, what's the point? I also wonder what they're going to do with the costume there. They're hardly going to... Like, the one iconic thing about... Well, not the one iconic thing. One of the iconic things about The Little Mermaid is, of course, the look of the mermaid and the seashell bra. That's kind of been stolen for a lot of looks of mermaids in general, so... They're hardly going to put someone in... You know, they're not going to do that. I mean, the way they... Considering they changed some of the costumes in Aladdin, they're not going to go with that route, but... I don't know. I think that could work, but... Yeah, it's tough to... I don't know, like, I can see the underwater stuff working. I can see the end working, but that middle chunk of the movie is going to be a bit of a mess. And, like, they're really running away from talking animals in these movies. The live-action update ones, you know. They're kind of, like, Iago, for example, they took away him speaking. And aside from The Lion King, where they had to do it, I think they're going to try and minimise that because they want these to be somewhat realistic. I don't know will that work, in The Little Mermaid, but also, you know, you need Sebastian and Flounder to be able to speak because your lead character doesn't speak for a lot of that movie. I don't know, maybe I'm looking too much into it, which I'm sure they'll get around it, or just it won't matter. There's talk of a sequel to The Jungle Book. There hasn't been any development on that because Jon Favreau went to make The Lion King. I heard about it, you know, it made $1 billion. I think they should just let sleeping dogs lie and just be like, hey, move on to the next one. A Tinkerbell movie. There was a lot of animated Tinkerbell movies at one stage, which were pretty big. There was talk of a Peter Pan movie as well. I think that might be going to Disney Plus, possibly. Snow White films plural. One being based on the animated film with the Seven Dwarfs, and one that's based on something I never heard of, which is Snow White and Rose Red. Apparently, like, this is a different Snow White character as well, I don't know. And a Prince Charming spin-off. Oh, dude, kill me, like, like, ugh. All these movies just are so unnecessary. But then you see, like, Aladdin comes up and makes so much money, regardless of what some of the reviews have said. That, like, we're going to get these a lot. For the foreseeable future, it's going to happen. And what I was finding interesting, what I'm thinking about now, they're starting to run out of these movies. And I know that sounds weird because you're like, oh, well, they have loads of Disney movies. When you look at, like, I think they've made 52 of thereabouts. A lot of those movies wouldn't, I don't mean they wouldn't work in live action. I just mean they're not doable. Like, some of them are just musical kind of, you know, mixes. As in, we have, like, Three Caballeros or whatever. Make My Music, kind of just musical shorts. That won't work. A lot of the stuff is more recent. Some of the stuff they have no, like, they're not going to make Brother Bear or Home on the Range, you know? And I think they're going to, you know, steer away from doing any of the stuff that's too modern. I don't know. I think they're going to run out of these sooner rather than later. And then I guess you're going to get spin-offs and, like, you know, like Maleficent and that kind of, I'm not going to call it crap, I guess, because I actually saw Maleficent on a plane. I thought it was okay, but I'm not necessarily a big fan of, was it Sleeping Beauty? Is that the one she's in? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Then I was thinking of another thing. This is another thought that entered my head with all these, right? Is there a possibility they could do these with Pixar movies? I don't know. I'm not saying that's likely, but for example, if they did a Monsters Inc. live action one, or maybe they did Bug's Life or something like that. Not that Bug's Life was a big hit, but you know, it's just I'm interested to see what they do with this as a development strategy. Maybe they'll just go back and make more animated stuff, and then, or else they'll drag these out long enough that by the time it's over, they can make a live action version of, like, something more recent, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, let's talk a bit about Pixar, because those got some dates for those as well. We have 2020 is going to have 2 Pixar films. 2021 will have 1 film, and 2022 will have 2 films. The only one we know, the only one that's confirmed so far, is their next one after Toy Story, which is 2020, the first one there, called Onward. I believe Chris Pratt is in that. It's sort of a fantasy thing where they go on a journey looking for magic. The first images of it just came out about an hour or two before this. We don't know any of the other names of what they're making. They have said, and they've said this for a while now, that the next while is not going to be as concentrated on sequels, which I find interesting, because they've had probably a few sequel-heavy years, and I think there's actually some Pixar movies I wouldn't mind seeing a sequel to be honest. Wouldn't mind seeing a sequel to Inside Out. I think with a strong pitch, that would work. I think after Incredibles 2, people were kind of expecting Incredibles 3 at some point. I love how for Incredibles 2, they were like, we're not going to make it until we have a really strong idea. And they were like, hey, what if we just do like the second movie can just be the first film, but swap it around? And they're like, yeah, that seems to work. I don't know, I felt like there was much more possibility for another Incredibles after Incredibles 2, but maybe I'm wrong. I wonder though, you know, Pixar have been a bit of a mixed bag with some of their original stuff lately. They had the Good Dinosaur, which wasn't great. Brave was original. People didn't exactly love it, you know. I don't know. I'll take it more original stuff to crap sequels anyway. We'll see how it goes. Of course, we had Coco, which was fantastic, so I shouldn't say anything. And they've got a lot of promising talent there, so we will see how that pans out. So Onward is coming out March 6, 2020. The plot synopsis is a suburban fantasy world where humans do not exist, populated with elves, trolls, and sprites, where unicorns are as common as rodents. 2 teenage elf brothers embark on a quest to discover if there is still magic in the world in order to spend a day with their father, who died when they were too young to remember him. It's coming out March 6, 2020. So yeah, I think that, that doesn't sound bad, actually. But I don't know, I'm always, for some reason, I'm always really conscious about fantasy CGI movies. It just seems like they're normally crap. I don't know where I picked that idea up from, but we'll see. I'm sure we'll probably get a look at this probably with Toy Story 4. Even a short teaser. And talking of animation, Blue Sky Animation, which is something they also got from Fox. They have, I think, one movie coming out, which is Spies in Disguise. That's the weird one where Will Smith turns into a pigeon. I saw the trailer for that in front of a movie recently, and I was again just like, what? And they haven't like put out, I don't think they've put out another trailer with more details or more of what happens. They're just really selling the movie on Will Smith becomes a pigeon. Which, alright, fair enough. They have confirmed that Nimona, which is based on Noel Stevenson's kind of graphic novel, is going to go ahead. It's going to be released March 5th, 2021. I have that somewhere in my house. I haven't read it. I heard it's very good. And it seems like it really caters itself to animation. So it's good that we're going to at least get, maybe, not, I won't say riskier properties, but we're going to get something that maybe Disney wouldn't be comfortable. I assume it's going to come out on the Blue Sky as well, so they can distance themselves from it if they need to. The Kingsman prequel, I mean, they confirmed this is still arriving, February 2nd. That's not really a surprise, it had already started filming. So of course it's coming. Liam Neeson joined that as well during the week. Other weird things was Indiana Jones 5. Got a date. So apparently it's happening July 9th, 2021. Spielberg is going to be back, as is Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford made some... I don't know, Harrison Ford is really weird, right? Because he comes off like such a sour old curmudgeon. I tried not to swear there because I didn't want to swear about Harrison Ford. But sometimes he comes across as quite of a joker, quite fun. And he did an interview where he was like, and you can't tell if he's joking around because sometimes he is so sour, but it seemed like he was like, they can't make another Indiana Jones without me. You know, when I die, the character is dead. It's like, alright, fair enough. And I think he made a joke about Chris Pratt and called him Chris Pine, but, you know, I think we've all done that one time or another. Hopefully, this is good. I don't know if I really want to see a really old Harrison Ford, you know, cracking the whip and all that. I maybe, you know what, just call him Indiana Jones Jr. and get another guy in or something. Or just recast. Who cares? I think there's a lot of possibilities in Indiana Jones as a series, so I'm interested to see where it goes. And like, they can't exactly say, oh, it's sacred after Crystal Skull, because that one wasn't great, was it? And then we got a few date shuffles. Artemis Fowl being the big one. Artemis Fowl got kicked back nearly a year. It was meant to come out August of this year. Now it's not coming out till May 29th of next year. They put out a trailer for this as well. I don't know what the delay is. Maybe they just want to make sure they get it right. Maybe they just figured it's too cramped a summer, which, I mean, Disney's summer this year is absolutely insane. You know, like, they put out Aladdin. Aladdin is massive, but it's probably hurting Endgame's legs. You know, they probably can't think of any other studio that would be having two big massive movies that they have so close. And then in a couple of weeks after that, they're going to have Toy Story 4. And then after that, they're going to have The Lion King. And that's just off the top of my head. There could be other stuff in there as well. Like, Jesus Christ. Could have spaced this stuff out, because apparently next year their slate isn't great. I don't know. New Mutants, of course. Oh, New Mutants. My old flower. I talk about New Mutants, I think, nearly every episode. On the first episode, I talked about New Mutants. We're still talking about it. It's still no closer to coming out. Got moved from to April 3rd of 2020, so April 3rd next year. The whole thing about reshoots, apparently Disney do want to do the reshoots. Alright then. Again, it's hard to believe anything about this movie. I'll believe it when it happens. We will see. Should also say that Disney are going to have complete control of Hulu, I think by 2022 or something, or maybe 2024. In a deal with Comcast, they're going to pay them a lot of money, a couple billion, so that they're going to completely own Hulu. So they're going to have, of course, Hulu and Disney Plus, which is something we speculated on for a long, long time. And there we go, it's been confirmed. Alright, those are all our Disney date shuffles. All over the place. Lots of movies coming out. Some good, some bad. Some might never see the light of day. I'm talking to you, New Mutants. Some of the big news I missed on my little sabbatical was the casting of our potential new Batman. Robert Pattinson is apparently... Okay, look, he's not confirmed. Everyone's kind of rushed to say he's confirmed. He's not technically confirmed. It's just that it looks very, very likely that he is going to be Batman. R-Batz. Or Robert Pattinson. Or Pattinson. Bat. There we go. That'll go right off the tongue. Alright, here's what we do know. He was, if nothing else, the top choice. at the time, last we've heard in general, I think, is that he hasn't signed a deal. But it looks like it's pretty much his for the taking. There has been other actors mentioned. Armie Hammer is because he's mentioned every time any superhero is mentioned because he's got an amazing jawline, I guess. Nicholas Hoult was mentioned, which, where did that come from? Like, he's a good actor, but he does not look like a Batman, really. I don't know. So Robert Pattinson seems to be basically the most popular choice. It's, of course, met with controversy on the internet, as every superhero casting is, but especially because some people have not followed his post-Twilight career, and they're just like, this is the Twilight guy. Even though it's been nearly a decade since Twilight or something. I'd say haven't seen all his films, obviously, but he's made some very interesting choices. He's obviously been trying to grow himself as an actor. He's going to be in the new Christopher Nolan film as well. So obviously Nolan sees something in him. A film that he did that I liked particularly in recent years was Good Time. Look at that. He is a good actor. He has the look of a Bruce Wayne, and I can't remember who, said it. I think Kevin Smith might have said it, actually. And I think he heard it from someone else that was more close to the production of Batman movies. When you're casting for Batman, you're really just casting Bruce Wayne, because if they look good in the suit, which most people will, you just need to cast the Bruce Wayne element. Most people can play Batman. If you have a strong jawline, half the time you're going to have someone sitting in for you anyway. And you can do a decent kind of intimidating voice. Half the time that's done by computers now anyway, because they decide to give him the Batman voice. Shit, I could be Batman. I couldn't be Bruce Wayne though. But what I'm saying is, if you're looking for someone who is a good actor that can do roles like this, he can easily be a Bruce Wayne. And he can definitely be Batman based on that criteria alone, in my opinion. Now, not everyone feels that way, but I would say, people were the same about Affleck. And he did great. People were the same about, Michael Keaton. And he did great. I don't know what people's thoughts were on George Clooney and Val Kilmer's time. Never actually looked that up. Because in your head, you're like, hey, Val Kilmer, back in the day, maybe he could have been a good Batman, but now you're like, oh, no. Anyway, that is what it's looking like. It looks like it's Robert Pattinson. It hasn't been confirmed. I'm guessing when this is confirmed, we'll get a lot more info as well. I think they're apparently still working on the script to this. Might have hit a small snag, a bit of a delay. But what is on board for this as far as villains? Sounds like it's multiple villains. We don't know for sure. Everyone's kind of going, I heard 2 villains. Well, I heard 6 villains. It's like a stupid game of one-upsmanship. What everyone seems to be saying is that the Penguin is definitely in. That was something we've heard for a long, long time now. Josh Gad is rumoured to play him because him and Matt Reeves get on very well. Josh Gad, I could see that. He's a decent actor. A lot of people don't like him, but hey, if people don't like Robert Pattinson as Batman, what chance does anyone else in the cast have? Catwoman is also mentioned quite a lot, so it'll be like a little Batman Returns action. If they do that, I hope they get a lot more villains. And it did seem like the idea of a lot of villains is something that is very much in play here. I think that's very likely that we could get 5 or 6 villains in this movie. Easy. Even if it's only small things. And that would be probably the best thing they could do, because in all these Batman movies you want to get a few villains. And Batman has a massive rogues gallery. And as far as a film-going audience, they're more familiar with Batman's rogues gallery than probably any other superhero. He's got a massive rogues gallery. We know most of them. We don't need to see the origin again unless it's someone really obscure. Catwoman and Penguin aren't that obscure. So they could easily throw them in. Maybe someone like the Riddler could get the focus then. Even though we had Riddler, but it was Jim Carrey, so we're not going to dwell on that. But you know what I mean? If there was a superhero franchise, they could just cram a load of characters in, funny for little cameos. They could probably do it with Batman, when done right. And I think a detective story, like a Batman, which is seemingly what this is going to be, it could definitely work in that context. Well, as I was away as well, television season, as we know it, I guess network television especially, has kind of come to an end. Generally, that season kind of ends in May. We're coming to the end of May now. And because of that, we're getting cancellations and renewals all over the place, which I'll talk about now. I also should say, just as far as dates go, maybe dates some people might be interested in. Rick and Morty is going to premiere in November. Disenchantment is coming back in September. I never actually finished Disenchantment, which is a shame. I couldn't get into it. Because I love Futurama, obviously I love The Simpsons. I don't know, Disenchantment didn't grab me. I might have to give it another go. One of the things that really pissed me off, actually, was when Disenchantment came out. And people were using it to bash Futurama. They're like, oh, well, Futurama didn't get good until about season 3. Which is like, no, not really. I mean, there was a load of, like, some of the best episodes of Futurama are in that first season. Then again, you know, Disenchantment, I guess, technically is halfway through its first season. Even though it's 10 episodes, which is a sizable chunk. We'll see. I don't know, I might give it a shot, but if you're a fan of it, it's coming back in September. And obviously, if you're a Rick and Morty fan, you're probably a bit crazy. And it's coming back in November, so stop going insane and freaking out over a sauce at McDonald's, you fucking weirdos. Alright, so network TV cancellations. We'll name a few here. Maybe a little bit of commentary depending on what it is. Whiskey Cavalier, this one, wow, this was a big flop, wasn't it? This had Lauren Cohen and Scott Foley. I believe Bill Lawrence was behind the scenes working on it, the guy from Scrubs. This is essentially what led to Lauren Cohen leaving The Walking Dead, is what it sounded like. And I don't know what the issue with this was. I think it might be the name. That's something a lot of people brought up. Actually, at the upfronts, I think last year, before the show had even aired, Jimmy Kimmel, one of the Jimmys, Jimmy Kimmel, I think, mocked the name. Right there at the upfronts. He said, like, they finally found a name of a show worse than Cougar Town. I think they're both Bill Lawrence's shows, so that's unfortunate for him. But yeah, that's an awful name. Doesn't tell you anything. And I heard the show was decent enough. I heard people that were into it. And there was a very brief moment where they were like, hey, we might, renew it. And then it was like, no, never mind. So Warner Brothers are still shopping this to other networks. I don't know. I don't know anyone that's watching it. I'm not sure how it's doing internationally. But it seems to be dead. Which is, after one season, it seemed to be the most promising out of the bunch at one stage. So it's gone. Also proof that not every revival series goes well. Murphy Brown got cancelled. I don't know much about Murphy Brown. It's a law show, right? It was on CBS. CBS, generally, their demographic is older, so you would have thought this could have succeeded, but I don't know. It just didn't get off the ground, and that's done. Happy Together, a show that is starring Damon Wayans Jr. got cancelled. His father, Damon Wayans Sr., also had his show axed, although... Okay, let's talk about Lethal Weapon, the TV series, very, very briefly. I never watched this. I heard it was pretty good, and I saw a few clips of it there. I was like, damn, that looks like it could work. Apparently it did. Quite well. It got to 3 seasons, but you had the thing where, what's your name? Chance Crawford? I don't know. The guy who plays Riggs. He left the show at the end of the second season. Him and Damon Wayans just did not get on. And it sounds like both of them are dicks, basically. And Damon Wayans is the bigger name, so they let the other guy go. And then Damon Wayans was such a pain in the ass that he was like, I'm leaving at the end of the season anyway. So they brought in Sean William Scott to replace Riggs. Yeah, to replace the Crawford guy, or whatever his name is. And then they were like, well, now he's gone. So what you would have had here, if this had been picked up, if this would have kept going, you would have had a Lethal Weapon show without Riggs and Murtaugh. That's a show that had a lot of promise and apparently did quite well. Internationally, had good viewers. People actually liked it. I don't know. It's a real... Wow, those two guys, they really screwed it up for everyone. So yeah, Damon Wayans and his younger son both had a show cancelled this year. The Cool Kids, which is created by Charlie Day, was cancelled. This one never really got a huge audience. It had a bit of a mixed reaction. Glenn Howerton, his It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia co-star, had his show cancelled, AP Bio, in its second season. There's a bit of a campaign going on now to try to save this. They're not always successful. I wouldn't expect it to be successful, but this was a show that had a cult following and nothing else. I heard it's not bad, but it's gone, at least for now. Probably forever. So it's weird. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia people. I wonder, are they typecast, We had Caitlin also had her show cancelled last year, The Mick, which was also really good apparently. And it seems like no matter what they try to do, people aren't accepting their other ventures. So I guess it's good for It's Always Sunny, but you gotta imagine that show is coming to an end, sooner rather than later. It's had 14 seasons. Regardless, X-Men. The X-Men TV series, The Gifted, got cancelled. I don't know anyone that watched this. It didn't really sell me based on the promos. But of course, there's no surprise because now X-Men is owned by Disney. So they probably don't want a TV series reminding them people of X-Men too much. But who knows? This Is Us. I mean, this is fair. This is all renewal stuff here. So that was all our cancellations. This Is Us got renewed for 3 seasons. Whew. I mean, that's a massive show, so it's not surprising, but 3 seasons, wow. I can't remember, isn't it? It's the show where, like, a guy is, I don't know, isn't a guy meant to be, like, dying or something? And he's been dying forever? And they're going to bring it out 3 more years? I don't know. I can't remember. Milo Ventimiglia, is that the guy who's dying? Regardless, people love that show. Not surprising. Apparently quite good. Never watched it. As with most network television, I just don't watch it. Because it's hard to get invested in a show where it just feels like it's restricted. I don't know. Unless it's a sitcom. Sitcoms I can get behind, but like dramas, it's just, you know, like stories of the week kind of crap most of the time. That's stretched out to an insane degree. And then you get invested in the show finally and they cancel it. Which is what is happening to a few people this year. Blind Spot got renewed for a 5th and final season. This is a show that, I don't know. This was a show where they kind of hinged it on, what's her name? Jamie Alexander? Sif and Thor. Is like found like naked in a bag in Times Square, covered in tattoos that apparently helped solve crimes or how she got there or something. It was basically like Prison Break and Jason Bourne mixed together. Now, this is on its 5th season, which alright then. I had no idea. What I heard is someone say recently is that like, for the first few seasons it was like, oh, the tattoos. And they were like, oh shit, we're running out of tattoos. And then like they put it under a UV light and they're like, oh, there's another layer of tattoos. You can just tell there was writers like, oh, what are we going to do? This is running out of tattoos. Oh, what are we going to do? Oh. I remember that with Prison Break as well. They like very quickly realised, hey, how much use can we get out of his tattoo now that he's not in prison? And it just became awkward. I'm sure he got his tattoo removed by the end of it. Oh well. I think that's coming back for another season. Like, I know I had a revival season and I come back for another season, which I never watched. I loved Prison Break when it was on TV originally, but I don't know if I could watch it now. We'll have to see. The first season of it, especially, was amazing. Anyway, let's talk about one of the more controversial shows to get renewed. That is Bull. Right. I've never heard of this show, and I wouldn't have heard of the show if it wasn't for the controversy. But again, it's on CBS, so CBS has all the massive shows. All the old people seem to watch these shows. Maybe I'm just out of the loop. This is a show that is loosely, and very, very, very loosely based on Dr. Phil. If you've heard of it, the reason you probably heard of it is this sexual harassment controversy. And we'll get into that in a sec. But in other words, the result of this is that Spielberg and Amblin, who were involved with the show, have said they're no longer involved with the show. They're cutting their ties with the show. But it still got renewed for a 4th season. So what happened with this sexual harassment story was that Eliza Dushku was on this show with this actor, Michael Weatherly, which is insane. Like, what happens here, especially because like Eliza Dushku is like a big deal. Like, she's a name. I know her. A lot of people do. Michael Weatherly, I don't know. He's probably known to some people, I guess, but I guess, you know, it doesn't discriminate regardless. What happened essentially was that at the end of season 1, there was a strong possibility she would return in more seasons. She was like in a guest role capacity, and it was basically like, this character's going to be here for 3-4 years. And Michael Weatherly made sexually suggestive comments to her. You know, creepy old man. Made horrible comments to her, and she complained, and CBS fired her. Which is insane that they try to pull that in this day and age. Imagine firing the person that complained. But I guess this is also run by Les Moonves, who was also had his own sexual harassment controversy, or it was run by him at this point, as far as I know. And by the way, they try to fight and be like, no, it's not true. Look, here's tape. And apparently the tape they gave her basically strengthened the argument that this is true. And as a result, they had to pay her $9.5 million, which is the salary they would have anticipated if she had been a series regular for 4 seasons. That is a very costly thing. And the fact they renewed it and they're still giving this guy a job, even after someone like Spielberg pulls out, I mean, I don't know. Hollywood is just a dump, isn't it? I don't know. I'm sure this is happening in other places as well, I guess, but, well, it's insane. The ratings of it for it as well are kind of only half decent. I don't know how it does it internationally. I've never heard anyone ever talk about the show. I don't know, was it worth the headache? Hawaii Five-0 got renewed for a 10th season. I'll just hold for shock effect there, because you're like, wait a sec. Hawaii Five-0 has been going for 10 years. Yep, apparently so. So has MacGyver for 4 years. Fresh Off the Boat got renewed, which was probably the most entertaining thing because Constance Wu, one of the actresses in it, who was also in Crazy Rich Asians, that was kind of her big breakout, I think. She was basically like, oh, fuck. My show got renewed. This is bullshit. Which, like, come on. You, like, whatever about being a film star, that show is not going to be going much longer. Don't be so spoiled. You've been in, like, when you look at our IMDb as well, that's our big deal. After that, it's like, what you got in development? Oh, a sequel to Crazy Rich Asians. Like, come on. You have a good paying job. Get over yourself. And of course, it led to probably one of the funny and least funny things, which was celebrities reacting to the cancellation. The first few people I saw it did, I was like, haha, that they did it. So it was like, I think like Seth MacFarlane did it, the Orville got renewed. The Orville got renewed for season 3. And he said, he was like, oh, fuck this is bullshit, which was funny. And then I saw every single actor do it, and it's like, okay, we get it. Yeah, so I guess Constance Wu is not that fun to work with. I don't know. We'll see how that pans out. The Goldbergs got renewed. Again, a show I've never watched that a lot of people seem to love. It's on. I know it's on in Ireland. It's on like one of the channels here. Just random times on random days, I'll just turn on and be like, oh, I didn't know they show that over here. Okay, people love it. The spin-off to that as well called School got a renewal. As I said, the Orville got renewed. Empire got renewed for a final series. I do wonder if that would have been the final series if it wasn't for the whole Juicy Smollett thing. Or Juicy Smollett, whatever his name is. That was a disaster. I wonder if that will affect ratings. It should. Bit of a disaster. I feel bad for the people that support him. Technically, I guess he was cleared of wrongdoing, but he was cleared of wrongdoing and then had to pay for all the stuff, so I don't think that really... I don't know. I'm not going to get involved. I don't like talking politics. Okay. Here's one we do need to talk about. Humans was cancelled by AMC and Channel 4. And I've never watched Humans. I heard it's quite good. I heard it had ran its course anyway. I want to talk about AMC. As we've done before. I've kind of joked because of The Walking Dead with them before. And I said, what is going on at AMC? Seriously, what the hell is up with AMC? So the last time I was talking about this, I was sort of just talking about, what was up with The Walking Dead and all that kind of stuff. So they cancelled Humans, okay? And that's, that is what it is. Humans seem to have run its course. Let's look at what AMC have on their network right now, okay? This is drama. These are the dramas they have on TV right now. So obviously we have The Walking Dead. That's their big one. Again, the ratings for that are going down a little bit. We'll see if that affects anything. Better Call Saul. There's one season of that coming in next year. Possibly a season after that. I think Giancarlo Esposito said that. So there's not much left in that. Fear the Walking Dead. The ratings for that are not great right now. It's a Walking Dead spin-off, but whether or not that will save it, I don't know. Now, let's look at the rest of their shows. So, those are probably their big hits. The Walking Dead is obviously their massive hit. Better Call Saul, pretty big deal still. Preacher, ending this year. The Sun, ending this year. McMafia, second season is coming. Except it's, made by BBC as well, who are originally only going to do one season of it. So you could be waiting a long time since BBC, British television can sometimes take 2-3 years. The Terror, second season of that is coming. They've had to basically retrofit that to get another season out of it. And again, it takes quite a while to make a season out, is my understanding. Lodge 49, apparently a good show. Ratings for it are absolutely dreadful. Then you have their unscripted series, Talking Dead, Talking Saul, Talking Preacher, Talking with Chris Hardwick. So you have four shows of just talking with Chris Hardwick. And then you have a Norman Reedus on a bike, Ride with Norman Reedus. Upcoming shows, a Walking Dead spin-off. Nosferatu, which is based on the Joe Hill novel, Stephen King's son. Again, based on a book, so I don't know how many seasons you get out of it. That's kind of it. So out of most of their shows, they've cancelled, 2 of them are ending this year. One of them they cancelled there. The other current dramas they have are either not doing well or not likely to come out very often. What is going... I don't understand what this network is doing. They had... they had Mad Men. They had Breaking Bad. They were a big deal, and they've really fallen off. I don't understand it. Like, you look at the ratings for some of these shows, well, and they're absolutely abysmal. And I know they cancelled a lot of shows that had better ratings than this. They cancelled Into the Badlands recently. Turn, the Washington Spies, when that got cancelled. One of the ones I found interesting was Comic Book Men, which is a reality show. The ratings for that were like massive compared to some of their, scripted stuff. And you have to imagine that they was a lot cheaper to produce. Like, this is this just going to become the Walking Dead network? Are they really just that creatively bankrupt right now? I don't know. I could feel like I could talk about this in more detail because AMC are a fascinating network. They had all that kind of talk at one stage back when, God, this must have been 3-4 years back, I think. And it was talking about how they nearly lost Breaking Bad. The creator Mad Men wasn't happy. I think it was The Killing at the time had kind of killed its audience because of bad marketing. It feels like it's the only TV network I can think of where you can creatively see how people are affecting the shows, as in executives. Like, you watch Walking Dead and you're like, well, clearly they didn't want to spend all their budget on this episode, so they waited till later. They clearly didn't want to kill off this character, or they had to kill off this character because of a contract issue, and that's normally the case. I don't understand it. Maybe Mad Men and Breaking Bad were just an anomaly. Like, someone like HBO put out some of the greatest shows ever. Generally, put out some fantastic programming. AMC, it seems more and more likely that they got lucky. And I don't know what's next. I don't know. Preacher. I should have loved Preacher. Again, it's a show it's a show on a network where I feel like they had so much input on it that they messed it up. First season of Preacher, I could not stand it. I know some people liked it. And look, I love the comics of Preacher, and maybe it's not just that I didn't like it, because basically the whole first season of Preacher is just to get you to the first issue of the comic. And all that aside, it gets you invested in all these people and characters and a setting that is completely irrelevant by the end of the season. And the second season was fine, but again, it felt like, and something that pissed me off enough about The Walking Dead that I stopped, it felt like there was like penny pinching going on, where they just were like, okay, stay here now for 4 episodes because we're going to pay for this set, damn it. Like, I don't know. Sorry for going on a rant about AMC. I should probably talk about that in more detail at some point, because I find that as a network fascinating. I think they're really just dropping the ball consistently. I don't know. I hope they put it together. Again, Mad Men is one of my favourite shows. Breaking Bad is one of, if not my favourite show. I don't know. Anyway, that's me enough. That's enough about me ranting about AMC. That wasn't even the end of that segment. I'm still talking about cancellations, because again, it's been very busy. Renewals. What We Do in the Shadows got renewed. Thank God. One of my favourite new shows this year. What We Do in the Shadows season 2. Season 1 didn't really end on anything where I would have been disappointed if it didn't get renewed, but it's pretty much one of the consistently funny shows on television. Gentleman Jack got renewed. I mocked this show. I said it sounded boring. It's been a pretty big hit. Not for me, but people love it. Billions, I think, got a 5th season. Showtime are another weird network. They'll just run a show into the ground. Like, it seems like every show where you're like, this is really good, and you get about 3 or 4 seasons into it, and you're like, I'm done. Anyway, got renewed. Angie Tribeca got cancelled. I think it had 4 seasons. I tried watching Angie Tribeca before, and it just felt like a bit too much. Felt like it was trying too hard, and after a few episodes I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Every episode kind of felt the same. Miracle Workers, that's one of their newer shows on TBS. That got renewed. Apparently decent enough. Daniel Radcliffe and Steve Buscemi are in it. Snowpiercer, the TV series, has not even debuted yet, and won't debut for a while. Season 1 isn't airing until like March or something, or spring next year. And then it got renewed for a 2nd season, so I guess they must be very confident. I think that's on TNT. The Tick was cancelled on Amazon. People are a bit disappointed about that. The creator said he's going to try to get it everywhere. I think more and more with these streaming services, we're learning that that's not an option, really. Like with network television, it was like, oh, if this isn't a success, you can take it somewhere else, and maybe a streaming service will pick it up. More and more with these ones, it's kind of like you have contracts which make that more or less impossible, or you have to wait, a long time. that it's not feasible anymore. And if a show can't succeed on a streaming network, it's probably not going to succeed on regular television, I don't think. And it goes in the opposite way as well. Like, you have a Community, it didn't really move the needle that much on television, and then they put it on Yahoo Screen, and Yahoo Screen is dead now. Like, I don't know. Streaming is going to get very interesting very soon. I think the DC network is going to fold pretty soon, and it's a shame because some of their shows are very good apparently. But regardless, another big bit of news, or a big event, I guess, that happened while I was away. I cannot believe they went ahead while I wasn't podcasting. They should have waited until I returned. The cheek of the people at the Cannes Film Festival. Alright, let's talk about some of the award winners, some of the bigger releases, some of the crap. Right, first thing I would say about Cannes, it's a pretentious bunch. That shouldn't surprise anyone. So I'll go into that a bit more in a minute. It's not necessarily an indication that the film is great. If it does well in Cannes, it can go either way, but we'll talk about that maybe in a bit. First of all, the most sought after award at Cannes is the Palme d'Or. This went to Parasite, which is a dark comedy from South Korea directed by Bong Joon-ho. He directed Snowpiercer, as we were just talking about Snowpiercer, Okja, and The Host. So it's the first Korean film to ever win this award. Apparently, sort of his dark comedy, the plot is all unemployed Ki Taek's family takes peculiar interest in the wealthy and glamorous Parks. Parks is a name, not like wealthy and glamorous like Parks where you walk your dog. From their livelihood until they get entangled in an unexpected incident. Ooh. Yeah, no, this is apparently a very, very good film. It's also the second year in a row that an Asian filmmaker has walked away with the Palme d'Or. Last year, Shoplifters did it. And Shoplifters did pretty well overall. I think it got, at the Oscars, it got Best Foreign Film nominated, at least, And it was apparently one of the best films last year. I haven't actually seen it yet, unfortunately. But yeah, that might be one to watch coming up. But again, you have to realise that foreign films, unfortunately, don't always do great. And, well, domestically, I guess, when you talk about America. I think there's actually been a change to the Oscar rules as well, with regards to foreign films. I think they're changing the classification to, like, best non-English film or something weird, which will cut, like, an English film or an Irish film or an Australian film or a New Zealand film. Any film in English, basically. Out of contention, I don't know. Anyway, that's something we can talk about another time. The Grand Prix Award. This is basically seen as a second place. It used to, I think, just be for a film that came second. Selected by the jury was Atlantics by Mati Diop, who is the first black woman to have a film in competition at the Cannes Film Festival. So, good on her. Congratulations. It's a love story from the French-Senegalese filmmaker in her debut. I've read up the plot synopsis. It doesn't sound like it's something I'd be into. But then again, if it's well done, I guess it wouldn't bother me. Apparently it's quite a good movie. Other notable films from award season. Okay. Pedro Almodovar's latest film, Pain and Glory. This features Antonio Banderas and Penelope Cruz. Banderas actually won Best Actor in Film. Also won Best Soundtrack. So I think Banderas possibly could be in contention for Best Actor. But the problem with some of those categories sometimes is that if it's a film in a foreign language, that doesn't always translate. But then again, we had, God, what was that film? I've already forgotten the name of it. Damn, that's not a good sign, is it? I think it was one of my favourite films of the Oscar season. What was it? It was on Netflix. Alfonso Cuarón's one. Roma. There we go. Sorry, I knew it was something simple. That's why my brain got confused. Of course, a few of the actors there got nominated, but that might have just been because of how big the Netflix campaign was. Who knows what sort of campaign Pain and Glory is going to have. The film is about a director who reflects on the choices he's made in life as past and present come crashing down around him. Does that not sound very biographical? Yeah. Anyway, that's one that was probably a notable one just because Pedro Almodovar is a very lauded filmmaker. We had Portrait of a Girl on Fire. This is from France. It won Best Screenplay. The film is about a forbidden love between a painter and her subject. And they're both female. It's an LGBT film. It won what they call the Queer Palm, which is basically, for LGBT films. The Girl from Belgium won last year, and Carol won the year before, I believe. This is from Celine Sciamma. It's the first time a woman has actually won the Queer Palm Award as well, which is possibly of note. Very good. I've heard it's apparently quite good. Very well written screenplay. So whether or not we see that kind of jump out. Who knows? We have seen, of course, a lot of LGBT films do well coming up to award season. Girl and Carol were examples of that. Blue is the Warmest Colour, another French lesbian drama. Did pretty well at Oscars before, so did pretty well award season. Maybe it could follow a similar trajectory. Speaking of Blue is the Warmest Colour, oh my god. This is a mess of a story. So I say, speaking of Blue is the Warmest Colour, because this is from the director of Blue is the Warmest Colour, Abdelatif Kechiche. I believe that's how it's pronounced. Right, this is the most hated film at Cannes this year. Or Cannes. Ugh, Cannes, who cares? Called Mektub My Love Intermezzo, which I'm assuming that's French. Maybe it looks more Italian actually. This is the second film in the trilogy, so Intermezzo I'm guessing is like intermission. Right, let's talk about this one, because the film itself seems to be trash and there's some worrying things about what happened behind the scenes. So the film has 0% on Rotten Tomatoes based on 9 reviews. Maybe it'll go up. It sounds like there was enough walkouts that maybe that might be the only amount of people who actually finished seeing it was these 9 people. I don't really know where to start. The film is being accused, for one, of objectifying and leering of women. There's gratuitous shots of women's asses, and while the director has defended as celebrating the body of people, there's apparently no shots of men, when there should be, given that they are also in the scene. Apparently 3/4 of the audience walked out of this movie. Which, again, at Cannes, the reaction is either a 20-hour standing ovation or people walk out and boo and hiss and, That's what I'm talking about when I say Cannes has pretentious. It's like, Cannes is basically like the internet. It's one reaction to it. They love it or hate it. But Cannes, they do it a bit more flamboyantly. They're like, bravo! And clap forever. Or they just go and walk out and storm and getting a major kerfuffle. Okay, that's one thing I've heard people say. So it sounds like, we're celebrating their bodies, but not just women's bodies, just women's asses specifically. This comes from someone who saw the movie. I'll give him a mention. This is a tweet. S. David Miller, who actually has his own podcast. I haven't listened to it, called Spoiler Warning. I'll plug that in there because I am taking his tweet, so it's only fair. He said, a summary of this 3.5 hour film. That's right. 3.5 hours of this. 30 minutes of talking, half of which are shots of female butts, 2.5 hours of dancing, virtually all female butts, and a 20-minute scene of unsimulated cunnilingus that profoundly misunderstands female sexuality. Male nudity? None. That's what the tweet is. Right. We'll get to that unsimulated scene in a sec, right? First of all, the lead actress left the screening. 3 of the actors didn't even come. The director, apparently, as soon as the lights came up, said, I apologise for having kept you, and now I'm off. Now, let's not forget, first of all, this director has faced criticism from lead actresses in Blue is the Warmest Colour as well. Leah Seydoux and the other actress whose name escapes me. They came after him. They basically said, he made things very uncomfortable. He was weird. Great director, got great performances, made a good movie. But he basically crossed the line. He's also under investigation for sexual assault allegations from an actress. It doesn't sound like butt shots are exaggerated, by the way. Another reviewer did say that there was 60% of the film that was asses. There's not much of a plot, apparently, either. So this guy is a creep, from what it sounds like. I should also mention that unsimulated scene that they're talking about, it was apparently protested against by the actors. They didn't want to do it. And until the director pressured them and supplied them with alcohol. So this movie, as I said, it's apparently in a trilogy. The producers didn't even want to finish the first film. He actually had to sell his Palme d'Or from Blue is the Warmest Colour to make this movie. And the first one is apparently crap. Didn't do particularly well. Here's the second one. Also awful. I mean, put the quality of the film aside. This guy sounds like a creep. And yeah, look, there's no limits in art and all that kind of thing. But if you're pressuring people into doing things like that and supplying them with alcohol to get them to do it, that's messed up. And not to mention the fact that, this lecherous cinematography of just filming women's asses. What's the story you're trying to tell here? I don't know. I guess I shouldn't judge the film until I've seen it, but I'm sorry, 3.5 hours of women's ass with no plot. That sounds like a step down from porno, to be honest. Porno probably has more plot. Oh Can. What a disaster you are at times. And I'm sure as much as 3/4 of the audience walked out, the other half shouted up and gave a 10-minute ovation. I heard the movie described as grueling, self-indulgent, and probably the most complimentary thing said is that it's trolling. Let's not let that film suffer alone. Let's think of another film that didn't do well at the festival, and that is Young Ahmed, a Belgian film that revolves around a young Belgian Muslim boy who plots to murder his teacher in the name of his religion. This got a mixed reaction. I'm not going to say, it was as bad as Mektob, My Love, or whatever it was. It got a mixed reaction. It wasn't great, not good. Some people said it was in very poor taste. Again, we should mention that, interestingly enough, like most film communities, a bit of a boys' club. The Dardenne brothers, who directed this, are frequent Cannes darlings. I think they've won 2 Palme d'Ors. So it's not too surprising. They actually won an award for this as well. Even though the film itself was far from loved, people ripped it to shreds, there was a sort of general indifference, especially the ending is apparently not great. Apparently there was a polite applause. I heard it described. So again, yeah, they look after their own, I guess. Let's talk about some of the films that are probably more notable in that they're, American releases or ones you might hear from big filmmakers or ones that will come up at award season. The biggest one was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This got a great reaction apparently. In Cannes, it got a 6-minute ovation. This is what I'm talking about. Just so we have some... You're not going to believe this. Just so we have some perspective here on Cannes, okay? Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, 6-minute ovation. Guess what? How long an ovation Clerks 2 got? 8 minutes. Now I love Clerks 2. It's funny. But that just shows how Cannes is a bit of a piss take of itself. Alright? It has a 95% of Rotten Tomatoes at the moment. It's comedic, it's blasé, it's a very personal film. It sounds like, Hollywood, kind of history and the whole Manson family issues really affected a young Tarantino. I've also heard it described as uneven and a bit baggy, which is probably what I could say about his last 2 films, to be honest. I find it very interesting that Tarantino's films, which are a bit indulgent, a bit too much, coincide with the death of his longtime editor, Sally Menke. She died, I think, just after Inglourious Bastards. I think every film after that has been like a bit too much, and it sounds like this is the same. Not only that, it's apparently going to be recut. It's already at 160 minutes, and they cut out actors like Danny Strong, James Marsden, James Remar, and Tim Roth. Tarantino said he's probably going to recut it. It sounds like he kind of had to rush to get this ready, so we could get a longer one. People really loved it, and yeah, I don't know. Just people just kind of kissing Tarantino's ring. I don't know, it's very odd, like the comedic tone. Some people did come under fire, or not come under fire. They kind of went after Tarantino a bit because, yeah, like this tone, whether or not that's appropriate for Charles Manson and the death of Sharon Tate, if that is indeed what happens. Like I did say at one stage, I had a theory that, and it was something Slash Film said as well, that maybe she doesn't die. Maybe they're going to do a bit of revisionist history, and it's going to be, she fights off the Manson. I don't know, the Manson family. Maybe not though. There probably is spoilers out there. I haven't looked up anything, so I have no idea. Yeah, this is out in, I think, July in America. We're not getting it here in Ireland until August. I'm not even in Ireland in August, so I don't know when I'm going to see this or how I'm going to see that, but there you go. Pretty good, apparently. It could be even longer. Maybe a bit uneven, maybe a bit baggy if there are complaints. The Dead Don't Die. This is Jim Jarmusch's film. It actually opened the festival. Very mixed to a negative reaction, I would say, to this one. This is like a zombie kind of comedy. Apparently the humour is really meta, but it thinks it's funnier than it is. Most people describe the film as very dated. Bill Murray's good in it, but I mean, that's not surprising. Bill Murray's pretty much good in most things. And Chloe Sevigny is also very good in it from what we've heard. Again, Jim Jarmusch kind of makes art films. He doesn't always do it to make a you know, to get people to love his work or anything like that. It sounds like this is a bit too meta, a bit dated. People didn't really go for this one, but hey, it has a good cast. Maybe it's a bit better than people give credit for. I don't know. Then we have a film I highlighted at the start of the year when I was talking about films that are going to be bigger in Oscar season, and looks like I'm right. And that is The Lighthouse by Robert Eggers, who gave us The Witch, which I love The Witch personally. It's weirder and slightly more comedic than you would think, apparently. It says Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson. It's pulled in a lot from mythology and expressionist cinema, you know, German expressionist cinema more specifically. It won the Fipresci Award, which is apparently an award for best first or second feature chosen by critics. There's way more awards at Cannes than you would think of. It seems like basically every film gets some sort of award with enough caveats on it. The performances are fantastic. The chemistry is very good, especially Willem Dafoe. Sounds like that could be in play in Oscar season. I'm very much looking forward to that film. It sounds very weird as well. Doesn't just sound like a pretentious art film. Like, I don't know, there's some weird stuff in this one. I've read, look it up for yourself because there's a lot of odd stuff in this. And yeah, that is our new news. New news. Alright. We'll do quick hits. Quick hits is still here. Going to be a little bit shorter. This show is already over an hour. And I have a lot more to cram in. Not going to talk about box office or weekly watch this week. Those might be, you know, I don't think, like, talking about how the show is going to change a bit. Box office, sometimes we touch upon it through other stories. And a lot of times, you know, there's not much to say. There's only so many times you can say, hey, this film is the top of the box office again. And as for weekly watch, if there's a big release, I might touch upon it. But it's not like there's always something worth talking about. Like, you know, Netflix put up like 5 things a week. And most of it is forgotten about the week after. So what's the point? I guess. I'll do the quick hits, we'll do trailer trash, then I'll do some quick reviews, and we will go on to our main event, our feature. Okay, quick hits.
Look, up in the sky, it's a bird.
It's a plane!
Quick hits. After much hoopla, the Sonic movie will officially redesign the Hedgehog, who was branded as nightmare fuel. The film will also be delayed until Valentine's Day 2020 to get this movie right. I'm sure the internet will have nothing to complain about now. Arnold Schwarzenegger was drop-kicked from behind at an Arnold Classic event in South Africa, with the man shouting that he needs help and wants a Lamborghini, which in my opinion was a missed opportunity. He could have strolled up to him and said, I need your clothes, your boots and your motorcycle. Dan Aykroyd has revealed he has written a Ghostbusters prequel set in high school with the team as teenagers. I would say Harold Ramis was spinning in his grave, but Dan Aykroyd probably dug him up because he refuses to let anything die. Was that one a bit harsh? Oh well. Yeah, as you might notice, some of the segments have intros and that kind of thing. So if you have any thoughts on those, let me know at the end of the show. Again, they're works in progress. Some of them might change, some of them might be updated or refined. But it's a step in the right direction at least. Which brings us to our trailer trash. Trailer trash. I think it looks kind of good though. Okay, quick recaps on some of the trailers I have missed since I've been away. Some big ones I probably won't need to talk about too much anyway. Toy Story 4, it was like the other trailers. That was the final trailer for it. It's out soon. It's not really one I need to revisit. It was fine. It was just, it felt the same as all the other ones. It Chapter 2. I like this trailer a lot, and I'm not a huge fan of the original It, or at least not as much as a lot of other people. I liked that it started with a clip and then went into the regular trailer. Looked very good, must admit. Well done trailer. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. You know, very stylish trailer. Looks good. I guess we got a bit of an idea of the plot that Leonardo DiCaprio is basically a has-been actor. Yeah, you know, I don't know what to say about this trailer. The tone still seems a bit odd. I'm not really sure. Yeah, it looks like it's a cool period piece. It looks cool, which is kind of what Tarantino was going for, I guess. Aside from that, you know, it's about what I expected it to be. It didn't blow me away or anything. Spider-Man: Far From Home. Again, I wasn't blown away by this trailer. It was kind of more of the same as we got in the last trailer. Obviously, it was really tying into the whole Endgame thing. I'm not going to say what it is, but you can't really watch this trailer unless you've seen Endgame, unless you want to be spoiled. It was fine. It didn't really tell me anything we didn't already know, except maybe the multiple universes thing. But there's a good chance that could be a lie that Mysterio is telling him, so I don't know. I'm still looking forward to this movie, but it just didn't really... Like, considering there's a big gap between the first trailer and the second trailer, I was hoping that to be something like, whoa! that's what they've been working on. That's why they've been holding back. But it was really just, could have easily almost have been an extended version of the last trailer, in my opinion. It's fine though. Okay, so I'll go into more detail about the last few because they're a bit more recent. We had Terminator Dark Fate, which came out last week, I believe. God, this trailer was a letdown, in my opinion. It really just looked like Genesis again. Look, it's early. We can't really... Well, it's not that early, I guess, but... You know, it's early in the promotional campaign, I should say. They can easily sway us. Maybe there's something they're not showing us. If it wasn't for Linda Hamilton in this trailer, you would feel nothing about this, in my opinion. The effects are nothing special. It just feels like a rehash of the last few Terminators. I think this franchise really is just done, really. You know, we got to look at, was it Mackenzie Davis, which looks cool. She's like, she's not a robot, she's a human apparently, but she's got something up with her. We have that other new character that Sarah Connor sees like herself in. Some people are speculating that maybe it's gotten to the point where there's a new leader of the Resistance, not John Connor. Although I think that's probably unlikely. I think James Cameron basically said this is John Connor's story, even though John Connor isn't in this trailer at all. So the question is, where is he? Could he be dead? Probably not. I know people were saying that they were going to put Edward Furlong's likeness on a CGI double. Maybe that could be a flashback to T2. I don't know. I'm not sure what to make of this. I was really hoping it was going to blow me away and be like, yeah, this is the Terminator franchise we've been waiting on. It's just not though, is it? And they're like, hey, we're making a trilogy of it, which is what they said about every Terminator movie since Terminator Salvation. And yeah, they have James Cameron on board. And then you see how he's actually on board and it's like he's producing it or something, which he did with all of them. And he's got a story credit. Him and about 4 writers are in the story, and there's load more writers. We went through this before. Very tenuous link. I'm not as excited for this as I was hoping I'd be. Linda Hamilton being back is cool, but it just doesn't look great. I'm hoping I'm wrong. Gabriel Luna's new Terminator, the idea there is basically he can split between his like the liquid metal on the outside and the sort of exoskeleton, which is a decent idea, but it's not really anything that fresh, you know. I'm not sure, yeah. And of course they're bringing out my favourite line that they always do whenever there's a Terminator sequel, which is, this is the proper sequel to T2. This is going to take place directly after Terminator 2. This is really Terminator 3. Ugh. James Cameron, who endorsed, of course, Genesis, and I think now he's backing off that, is very involved with this, and he's saying, hey, this is the one. Whatever. I mean, I don't think Cameron's seal of approval means anything at this point, personally. He did say it's going to be R-rated. You wouldn't have thought so from the trailer, but again, this is only the first trailer, so there's time enough to change my opinion on it, but I'm just a little bit disappointed. I wanted more, which I guess is my relationship with Terminator movies for a long time now. So we'll see. I don't know. Dark Fate coming out in November. Not blown away with this trailer. It seems like a lot of people weren't. Let's go more recent. I'll talk about trailers that just got released. We had The Kitchen, which has Tiffany Haddish, Elizabeth Moss, and Melissa McCarthy. This is the Mafia one based on the DC Vertigo comic about their 3 wives to mobsters who get sent away, and they decide to basically up their business, you know, get involved. Yeah, this trailer did nothing for me, to be honest. I thought this was more comedic for some reason, but it looks fine, I guess. It doesn't look like anyone I'd be running out the door to see. It seems like if it was on TV I'd be happy. It feels like, it reminds me a lot of Widows, the Steve McQueen movie, and I thought Widows was okay, but this feels like a subpar Widows, which is saying something. I don't know, it's maybe they can put out another trailer, but I just thought this one was very bland, wasn't very entertaining, just seemed very by the numbers, which is a shame. I'd love if it was a lot better, because it's a comic book movie not based on superheroes. It would be nice to see a few more of those succeed. Maybe we'll get some weirder stuff then, but this just did not do much for me at all, I'm afraid. It's a shame, because I won't say I was looking forward to it, but I had a passing interest in it, and not after this trailer particularly, unfortunately. And then we have a trailer that also got released today as of this recording, which had the opposite effect on me. This is a movie I had very little interest in, and now after seeing the trailer I'm like, whoa, alright then. And that is Rambo Last Blood, which is presumably, it should be, the last round for Rambo. We don't get a lot of the story. There seems to be a lot of Mexican cartel influence, I believe. I think that was what was rumored before. And yeah, this trailer is very good. It's actually pretty interesting. It looks like he's going to have to defend his land and his home and that sort of thing. Stallone looks pretty good in it for his age. I could absolutely get into this. It reminds me of sort of Logan, that kind of colour palette and vibe from it. But yeah, it's set to Old Town Road as well. Stallone is down with the kids, man. He knows what they love. Rambo and Old Town Road. Yeah, this is, as I said, I can't really praise a trailer more than saying this is a movie I had no interest in that now I'm kind of looking forward to. So we'll see if that holds as we learn a bit more about this movie and as release date comes up. It's coming out in like September. Come out really soon, pretty much. So hopefully it'll be a good film, and hopefully we can get a proper finish to the Rambo series. Right, that's the trailer talk, the trailer trash, complete with an intro segment as well. Ooh, I would say the production has gotten better on this, but it really hasn't. Might have even gotten worse. Anyway, reviews. Okay, as I said, I wasn't particularly interested in constantly bogging the show down with reviews. If you want to hear my reviews, go to YouTube, because I'm putting them up there in a more succinct fashion, in probably a better fashion, quite honestly. And I don't want to spend a whole show reviewing any movies anymore, unless it's a very big release that I have a lot to say on. I will rush through some movies I've seen recently over the last month. All of these except for... Well, okay, I have a review of Aladdin coming up. My review of Rocketman was kind of tongue-in-cheek where it wasn't a proper review. But Detective Pikachu and John Wick 3, there's reviews for those up there. So aside from that, if you want to see more, check out the YouTube channel Pop Cult Pod, because it's gone up there and it's probably better than what we're going to do here. I might have to rush these a bit. Alright, Detective Pikachu. Was not very impressed with this movie, to be honest, overall. It's the first fresh video game movie on Rotten Tomatoes, which... I mean, I don't think it deserves it, really. It's not because it's bad, it's just not that good. I was mostly bored throughout the movie. It starts kind of interesting. The kind of noir elements are good. And I didn't find the lead actor very good, or the performances in general. It felt at times that they were a bit removed from the CG characters as well. Like they didn't know where to look. I had no idea Bill Nighy was in this, which was like, what the hell? You know, having Bill Nighy being like, oh, Mewtwo, was like, what the hell is going on? Yeah, it was pretty interesting. But the movie as a whole, I didn't really get into it. And, you know, it wasn't, look, I grew up with Pokemon like a lot of people. It wasn't the Pokemon I remembered, which I knew it wouldn't be. But I was expecting a few more familiar elements. This kind of felt like a fan film where they didn't have the rights to do certain things. There's one Pokeball at the start of the movie. There's a few more kind of barely in the background during a battle. There's one battle. It just felt like could have been any kind of movie. It did really feel like it made the most of its world, in my opinion. It did do a good job of establishing this world, though, for sequels, I guess, or for a franchise, but it's not doing very well overall. I think the reaction to that has been mixed in general, so that mightn't help it. You know, I didn't laugh. It's a kid's film, though, so I can't complain too much. It's obviously not based on, or not aimed at me, so I will say that. I guess I'll do spoilers for this. There's not much to spoil. I'll just say spoilers from here on out. It's not that spoilers anyway. There's only one aspect I think I need to talk about. I'll put a timestamp at the bottom if you want to skip ahead to the next review, which will probably be John Wick 3.
Spoiler.
Alright then, spoilers. Pikachu is the lead character's dad. Alright then. Ryan Reynolds basically nearly gets killed, and his soul is put into Pikachu by Mewtwo. So that's why it sounds like his dad. I mean, I don't know if that really works as a twist. I get, like, presumably he would have known his dad. Sounds like they are, you know, to a certain degree separated. But Yeah, I don't know if that works as a twist. It's very not interesting as well. And in a sequel, so is it like, I don't know. Does the sun go into the Pikachu? The whole soul swap thing. Does that mean Mewtwo's back? I don't know. I knew there was going to be some twist with Dad because it was so obvious the way they showed it. Like, it's like, oh, we can't see his face, or oh, he's clouded in shadow. It was like, there's going to be some twist here. I didn't even think about it too much, to be honest, because the movie sort of bored me. That I didn't even think about it that much. And then I was like, oh, it's Ryan Reynolds, alright. Yeah, no, I didn't think it was great, the movie, and I didn't think that twist really had any big effect on me. I guess it would have had a more emotional effect if he knew it was his dad, I think. Anyway, yeah, that was Detective Pikachu. Didn't love it. Had no real strong feelings for it. Would be down for another Pokemon movie at some point, maybe. But that didn't do much for me, to be honest. Anyway, it is what it is. I don't think this is the end of the franchise. I know they have others in development, and maybe they're hoping that another one could do bigger business than this, because Detective Pikachu was always a strange one to do, because it's not the main Pokemon game. I think that I heard, like, Game Freak, who owned the rights to Pokemon, didn't give them the rights to the main ones until they were like, you can do this one, and we'll see how it goes. So, that is that. John Wick 3, or John Wick 3 Chapter 3 Parabellum is another one I saw. I did a review for this on YouTube, as I said, if you want to check that out. I really enjoyed this movie. It was great to watch it with an audience. They got really into it. They kind of winced and went, ooh, ah, like that kind of stuff throughout the movie with some of the action scenes. I thought this movie did a great job of upping this type of action. It felt like in the second one, I thought it could have almost felt stale compared to the first one. This one, they introduced gunfights, fights with dogs. It got increasingly ridiculous, fighting with books and all sorts of stuff. Swords, knives, all that stuff. It made it a lot of fun. Halle Berry was in it less than I thought she'd be, but I think that worked. They really did a good job of expanding the world. They did that to a certain degree in the second one, but it kind of expanded on just New York, I guess. This one did a bit more international and a bit more about the world of the assassins and their governing bodies, which I really liked. New characters, yeah, they were... Some of them were fine. I would not be opposed to seeing them pop up again. Not that I think that any of them had amazing moments. There was a few kind of... They at least got a moment to shine, I would say, out of all the new ones. Apparently, one of the scenes in this actually sets up a spin-off. I think they're working on something called The Ballerina. And we see some of that. We also get a look at some of John Wick's backstory, which it did in a really good way. I hate when it's like... when you see a film and they need to establish something in the origin, and it's like, wait, here's a flashback. They didn't do flashbacks or anything. They just showed us without telling us, and it was really well done, very effective. Yeah, this movie is a blast. If you love the John Wick movies, you should love this. I thought this was more self-aware than the previous ones, but the action was really good. I probably enjoyed it more than the other ones, but maybe it was just seeing it with such an audience that was invested in it. Anything else I need to say about this? They're making another one. I think already the box office for this one is made more than the second film, which was a high point for the movie, so we're definitely going to get more John Wick. And as long as the quality is this good, you can't complain about that. Sets up some interesting possibilities for a sequel. But I do not think it offers as many fresh ideas. I think that this might be... Maybe this will be the high bar that they just don't reach. I hope I'm wrong. And if nothing else, the action will be good, because it has been in all of these movies, which is good to hear. What else? Is there anything else I need to say about John Wick? Not really. It was funnier than I expected, but the action was good, so you can't complain about that. As I said, I reviewed this on YouTube. I don't think I need to say anything with spoilers for this one. The ending I could talk about, but I think it's pretty clear cut what direction it's going in and what happens. So yeah, John Wick 3, check it out. I thought it was very good. If you liked the last ones, you will definitely like the third one. Okay, that brings us to Rocketman, which I didn't really review. I made a joke about how I couldn't come up with a joke for my review on YouTube, and it basically became a musical with me singing and dancing. So if you want to check that out, go right ahead. I'm putting ammunition out there for any time I tear an actor into them for singing or dancing being crap. Now they can come right back at me if they wish. Okay, Rocketman. So this, I guess, is it might be a bit longer because I haven't talked about this movie at all so far. I'm not necessarily an Elton John fan. That sounds a bit harsh, but I mean that I haven't actively sought out his music. I know some of the songs, like everyone does. I like him. I like his music. Going into this, because of that, I wasn't necessarily sure what to expect. I, of course, heard the good reviews, hoped for the best, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I'm not really a fan of musical biopics normally. If you go back and find an episode of this podcast where I tear into Bohemian Rhapsody, I think that's clear. And it's very hard not to compare this movie to Bohemian Rhapsody because, of course, Dexter Fletcher, who stepped in to save Bohemian Rhapsody, as it were, directed this all by himself. And Bohemian Rhapsody is probably is the biggest musical biopic ever. And this movie will never do anything near that as far as money, but I think it absolutely deserves it because it did things that it really avoided so many cliches that I expect from musical biopics, you know. And it felt like a more personal story. It wasn't just like when you watch some of these, it's like, oh, and here's how the band met, and then he made this big hit, and 3 years later they made this big hit, and they're on stage, and there's a fight. And it wasn't that. It felt much more interesting. You know, the whole thing is basically a story about Elton John, the man who's developed an alcohol addiction and his addictions in general. And it balances that whole dynamic of the persona someone takes on to be famous and the real person behind it. And basically how he had to, you know, I think there's a line in the movie where very early on where he's talking to someone in a funk band, I think it is, and he says something along the lines of, you know, you have to kill the person you are to be the person you want to be. And that is essentially what Elton John does, and he's kind of losing sight of himself. And I found that very interesting. Another thing I really liked was Taron Egerton, who I won't say I didn't rate him as an actor. I just thought it was, I've only seen him in the Kingsman movies, and I was like, oh, he seems kind of one note. I kind of put him in same camp as Channing Tatum, even though Channing Tatum is now a good actor. When he first came on the scene, it was like, oh, he's just this kind of pretty boy. And this was a really good performance for him. Very well done, and the singing is fantastic as well that he has to do for this movie. And speaking of the music, like I said, I'm not necessarily an Elton John fan, as in I didn't know all the songs for this, for example. What I liked about it is that it wasn't afraid to get fantastical. Like a lot of these musical biopics are strangely like a musical. They're not like a musical. They're just, oh, we play this song, and this one has a bit of style to it. It has fantastical elements that don't make sense in the real world, but we would see on a big stage show or a musical, which suits, you know, the flamboyance of Elton John and makes the movie far more interesting, for one. And another thing I did that I really like is, as I said, a lot of these biopic films are about them writing this, you know, writing the song, and then they wrote this one. Oh, and then they saw this and that inspired this song. This is much more a case of the story of his life, and then the song will manage to slip in there. But it's like, oh, Rocketman, a story about, you know, the story about someone being disconnected and feeling alone. That would make perfect sense because at this point in the film, he is in that area of his life. You know, the song was appropriate there, so they put that song there. It's not like, and I was so depressed I decided to write Rocketman, you know, which is good. I'm glad it wasn't anything like that. Now, there is elements of songwriting, but I felt it did it a lot better. Like, I saw a video, I think, what's the guy's name? Patrick H. Willems, I think his name is, where he's talking about music biopics. And he made a good point where movies don't really respect the songwriting process. Where it's like, I need to write something. And then someone will be like, oh, well, you better watch it, or else blank, blank, blank. And they're like, that's it. Eureka. I can write that song now. This one, it felt like you really got a grind of how difficult it was for Bernie and Elton to write their songs together. Another thing I liked, you know, you're waiting for, oh, Bernie and Elton, they're going to fall out, but then they'll come back together and it'll be a big triumphant move. Way brilliant. They never fall out, really. And it addresses that right at the pass. It's like, he only, because of course this is him at an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, this is the whole framing device. And he says, like, we've still to this day never had a fight. So you're like, great. Not only are you not going for a cliche or changing the story to be a cliched movie, you're saying, don't expect that cliche. Brilliant. Another thing I really loved about this movie, and I would have loved this in any movie, not just a musical, not just a biopic, is a weird one to compliment, but it's rating. So this is an R-rated movie in America. Now, I'm not going to get into the stupidity of the American rating system, because basically, since America's such a big market, it kind of commandeers ratings in a lot of countries, which is PG-13 or rated, which means if it's PG-13, it'll be suitable for teenagers, basically. If it's R-rated, it's for adults. And films have to really bend over backwards to get one rating or R at times. Blood is often the big one, but, you know, of course it applies to sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and that's, of course, what Elton John's life was. And the same with Bohemian Rhapsody, there would have been elements that, if it was more true, those elements would have been in there. It was very more sanitized because it wanted a PG-13 rating. This one is an R rating, but what I liked about it is it felt like it didn't go too far into the R rating. It just told the story as it needed to be. Some films go too hard to get an R rating. Some films go too soft to get a PG-13 rating. This one just felt like it was telling the story, and whatever rating it was, it would be. And it's refreshing that that's the case. I thought it was really good with regards to that. I mean, you know, there's nothing too shocking in it. But like all the swearing, you know, they didn't hold back. And because, of course, are we going to act like Elton John wouldn't be swearing? Oh, what else can I say about this film? Aside from the fact that I loved it. And again, I can't give it higher praise than saying I'm not necessarily a big Elton John fan and I got invested in this. I loved the songs and it was well performed. It's one of the better films I've seen this year. I really liked it. It was very well done. I would say definitely check it out. If you're an Elton John fan, you'll get into it because, of course, you love the songs and the story. If you're not an Elton John fan, I'm not necessarily, and I loved it. And I would say if you like musicals, it'll work on that context because it's not like your standard boring biopic. It's got some style, it's got some flourish. That makes it very interesting. What else did I say? I thought, yeah, it was also a very emotional film at times. Seeing Elton's backstory was interesting because you always have this conflict with the parents. And I thought it was very interesting at some point. And again, I think another thing that a lot of the films do is that they're like, hey, don't make our lead character, don't make the person we're making this movie about it to be a dick. You know, this film felt a lot more honest. You know, Elton has his flaws, and at times you're like, at times you're kind of pissed off at him. But of course, the mother and the father goes into their backstory a bit, and you know, the relationship with his dad is really heartbreaking, really effectively done. And as much as you might have seen things like that in other movies, it was very interesting to see how it was on this, and I thought they executed it perfectly. The mother as well was a very interesting character. She was a lot more layered because she comes off as this kind of, you know, sweet supporting mom at times, but then you kind of see a peek behind that and like, oh, maybe it's not the way it's seen. As maybe that's not as clean cut as we wanted to be. I remember there was one moment I was watching the movie and there was a row of people behind me and I can't remember, she said something. Bryce Dallas Howard, by the way, had no idea she was in this. She plays the mother and she said something and all of a sudden all I heard like behind me was, oh, she's a bitch. Which was like, yep, that's a real reaction, isn't it? I love how it didn't dwell too much to childhood. A lot of these biopics are like, hey, let's spend a third of the film with him as a child, which isn't interesting. You know, they spent exactly the amount of time they needed to as him as a child and then grew him up. And yeah, that's testament to the pacing of this, which I thought was brilliant. It wasn't trying to cram in his whole life. It was just very much a story of him battling addiction, understanding that he can be Elton John and Reginald, you know, whatever his real name is, the real man and the stage persona of Elton John. Very well done. Very impressed with it. I can't give it higher praise. I thought it was brilliant. I mean, don't get me wrong. There is flaws with it. There's a few things that are still cliched about it, but really, like I'd have to really nitpick to get flaws with this, and that's testament to how good this movie is, really. So yeah, Rocketman, high praise. No, I don't need to give any spoilers. I mean, it's someone's real life. I don't need to give spoilers. Very well done. Very impressed with it. Enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. And as much as I'm not an Elton John fan, I've been listening to Elton John songs since I saw the movie, and it was very well done. So top marks for that one. And I think that we might see Rocketman and maybe even Taron Egerton get some interest around award season. Last review, thank God, is Aladdin. So I haven't done a review of this on YouTube. I am working on it. So hopefully either by the time this comes out or a day or two after, I'll have my... Well, I should say that as well. I started a new review series on YouTube called Any Good. It's the idea I had basically is I wanted to do more to the point reviews. Is a movie any good? Why is it good? What's bad about it? I'm trying to keep them short. I think so far it's been 6.5 minutes has been kind of the longest length. And some of that you can skip if you're not interested in, skits or intros or any of that stuff. I'm going to do one for Aladdin, so it'll be up pretty soon, so check that out. Because this will be a bit more scattered than the YouTube one, no doubt. Because I'm not reading this, word for word. Aladdin is a weird one because as much as I'm not really down for these Disney live action versions of their classics, Aladdin's one that I thought would work a bit better. I think it's more, adaptable in that form. And I liked it, sort of. I mean, like there's nothing you can really spoil in this film. This is Aladdin. If you've seen the animated Aladdin, it's that. There's a few changes, which I guess I'll say they're nothing like too spoilerish. They flesh out Jasmine. They do a good job of it, actually. Jasmine is a much more interesting character in this than she was in the animated one. They give her a bit more, a bit more to do, a bit more motivation. She essentially wants to be the first Sultan of Agrabah. And it kind of goes into the background a little bit throughout the film, but that's fine. What else works in this movie? The effects are a little bit hit or miss. Sometimes Genie looks great, other times he doesn't. The Cave of Wonders, I don't know if you can say it has an uncanny valley effect, because I don't know if that applies to objects and stuff, but it doesn't seem real. I would say that much. Let's talk about the cast, because the cast are probably, I think, most worth. That's what's hard to talk about with this film, because it is just Aladdin. As much as there's a few added elements, there's a framing device. Genie gets a love kind of side plot, which is pretty pointless. And really, it's kind of, there's a framing device in this movie with the Genie, which kind of takes away any tension. If you even haven't seen the animated film, for example, that's gone. Yeah, I mean, the problem is that when you know the story so well, and I'm not saying the story to Aladdin was ever amazing anyway, but it's hard to get too invested in it. You're just kind of like, oh, well, it's more interesting to watch than actually investing. The cast, we have Mena Massoud, I think his name is, as Aladdin. I was a bit harsh on him in trailers. I said he was okay. I didn't know if he would be able to do it. It's a mixed bag. He's very charismatic as Aladdin, I thought. He's not able to carry some of the weightier stuff, and he doesn't always hit it out of the park as far as the performance goes, but when Aladdin needs to be charismatic and kind of charming, which he does have to be for a lot of it, to be fair. He nails that part. He does a good job of that. Doesn't exactly do a great job of the singing, I would say. And again, as I said, considering I put out a musical review of Rocketman on my YouTube channel, I'm opening myself up to all sorts of shots about my singing and dancing, so I can take the piss out of other people, I guess, now. His big number at the start, was it One Jump Ahead? One jump ahead of the blah, blah, that one. Is okay. I thought it was a little bit flat overall. And it's kind of has that sort of thing where it's clear he's like lip syncing, and it struggles because it's such an action scene that you're like, it's so obvious that it was recorded in the studio, which takes you out of it a little bit. And I also thought that, at times, I think throughout the film actually, but I noticed it more in the opening, that they were ramping things up speed wise and slowing things down at times. I think they were just doing that so the lips would match the lyrics better, which doesn't always work. It kind of makes you go like, I would say overall, though, the look of the film is pretty good. Production design is great. It's colourful. Thank you. I was worried that they would kind of mute the colour down in this. In fact, if anything, because look, with all these animated films, with animation, you don't have to be realistic. You can go wild with colours and emotions and expressions and movement and all that. The colours are something they managed to retain from the animated version, so I'm very grateful of that. The costumes are really good. They're actually faithful to the animated version, if that was something that bothered you. But they look really good as well. They work, like Jasmine's dresses are beautiful. They really make Naomi Scott just an absolute vision. Aladdin's stuff, his gear looks great when he becomes Prince Ali. That costume is great. Jafar's one, it looks a little bit goofy, but we might get to that. As far as the rest of the cast go, Will Smith, I guess, is the one people are most interested in, because they really did him no favours with the early marketing for this. He's pretty great. Yeah, he is. Like, people are complaining, oh, it's Will Smith. And I joked about that, obviously. But here's the thing, you know, when you look at the original Aladdin, that's just Robin Williams. Like, don't get me wrong, he does a lot of impressions, but that's what Robin Williams does. And in the same way, like, I saw an interview with the animated filmmakers. And they said something along the lines of, like, yeah, this film was built around Robin. If Robin had said no, we would have been in serious trouble. Like, that's because in the same way that Robin Williams was pivotal to that film, playing basically himself, Will Smith is pivotal to this film in that he's playing himself, and it works. And it's not that he's not going to be as funny as Robin Williams, because he's not, you know, a comedic genius that Robin Williams was. I don't think anyone is. That's not a knock against Will Smith. But he's charismatic, and he brings enough kind of flair and his own sensibilities to the role that I think really, really work. As for his singing, you know, again, Will Smith isn't really a singer. He's a rapper. There's a tiny bit of rapping in there, but he made the effort. It doesn't always work. There's definitely a lot of auto-tuning in there, and I think the musical score does a lot of the heavy lifting for him. But I'm not going to lie, the songs I've gone back to and listened to from the soundtrack have all been his. You know, A Friend Like Me, Arabian Nights. Actually, I thought the Arabian Nights opening was very good. It really established the world and everything in it very well. And, of course, Prince Ali. Really good. As far as the dancing and the kind of big musical numbers, I thought a lot of them were very boring. Friend Like Me was the big exception because it was sort of flamboyant and over the top and fantastical, which is something I was talking about with Rocketman earlier. Makes it far more visually interesting. Prince Ali was good because of how many extras there were and how much crazy stuff there is, but aside from that, a lot of them are just very passé. Not really interesting. Just standard musical numbers. As for, you know, the rest of the cast, Naomi Scott as Jasmine steals the show. Absolutely. She is fantastic in this. She's probably the best actor in it. She is stunning, obviously, which is something you need for Prince Jasmine. And her singing is absolutely great. Like, you can tell she has a singing background compared to the rest of the cast. They give her a song that's new to the whole movie. Was it Speechless, I think it's called? And it's really amazing. You can hear how great of a singer she actually is. And when it comes to A Whole New World, a segment I didn't really care for, I just thought it looked very drab visually, and I don't know if it really works in a live action setting. She's doing the heavy lifting there. Aladdin is fine. He can carry a note kind of, but she just excels. She was the highlight of this movie for me. I thought she was brilliant. I'm glad they kind of fleshed out Jasmine a bit more because she was the best part of this film in my opinion. Probably followed closely by the genie. The genie was pretty good. One thing I would say is that I never really bought that the genie and Aladdin were that friendly, like especially compared to the original. It just, there was times as well where it seemed like the genie was just gone for long periods of time. Maybe I'm just imagining that to some degree. The romantic chemistry between our two leads, it's fine. Better than I would have expected, I think, but it's not something outstanding or anything. I think the romance overall is well done. Not a lot of action in this. It feels like it actually has less than the original to a certain degree, which is a little bit disappointing. Then we get to our villain, Jafar. I showed some trepidation when the trailers came out about Jafar. I think I was right, to be honest. I didn't think this was a really good Jafar, a really good performance. I don't know if it's all the actor's fault, really. It just feels, I think it's because a lot of these Disney villains are like so over the top evil and menacing, and it's hard to do that in a realistic setting without it feeling a bit too much. And yeah, he doesn't come across very menacing. I think another problem is that they made Iago not able to talk, so he doesn't really have someone to bounce off of. So he's just kind of almost in isolation. He's just like, I'll be evil now, that kind of thing. I don't know. I was pretty, I wouldn't say I was bored. I was kind of just passively watching the first act. Second act I thought was pretty good. That's where I got into it. That's where all the fun stuff happens. We meet the genie. We got some of the best musical numbers. A lot of good stuff in the middle. Then as it came into the third act, which in the animated one, I don't think the third act is anything special either. I think it's fine, but it's so kind of visually insane. You know, there's like the giant hourglass and Jasmine's trapped in, you know, drowning in sand, and a giant snake, and Agrabah is almost destroyed by like an evil version of like mental. Not necessarily a strong ending, pretty obvious and predictable, but pretty cool. They take all the cool stuff out of the last act, in my opinion. And it just got boring because of that. I was really bored by the end of it. I mean, it is what it is. I just felt like it could have been done better. The movie, though, as a whole, I didn't hate it. I think some of the music elements of it are quite good. I don't think, you know, even though as much as Jafar isn't great, I don't think any of the performances are like, oh, that's awful. I think there is enough in this to make it watchable. A lot of people have seen this and loved it. Maybe I'm just in the minority. It's not a bad movie though. This could be a lot worse, but it gives me that resounding feeling I've had with all of these Disney live action films based on their animated movies, which is, what's the point of this? And I don't know, is that feeling going to go away? Like today alone, as of this date recording it, Mark Webb is apparently going to be directing Snow White. And we've got character posters for The Lion King, which are laughable in my opinion. Because they're you know, photorealistic versions of animals, and there's obviously a lot of lions in The Lion King, and you can't really tell them apart if it wasn't for the names written on the posters, and they're not emotive. It's like, what is this? What's the point of this? I don't know. I didn't hate Aladdin though. I thought it was better than I expected it to be. I wasn't bored until the last act. You know, it's not a bad time if you want to get out of your house and go to cinema. You could do much worse than Aladdin. It's not that bad. If you're not familiar with the story, you'll probably benefit from it. If you are familiar with it, you might enjoy seeing some of these elements make it to the live action version. That's probably the best thing I could say. There's no real spoilers in this. I mean, you already know what this film is because it's Aladdin, and I guess that's exactly what you wanted it to be. So there we go. That's Aladdin. As I said, more succinct, more defined, clearer thoughts. It'll probably go up on YouTube. I'm working on that at the moment. I have the review written and I've started filming it, so it'll be up. If it's not up by now, it'll be up soon. So keep an eye on the YouTube channel. And going forward, let's just address reviews. Obviously, I kind of did it. I'm never going to be doing this many reviews again, obviously. I might do a review, you know, an episode. If I do, though, it'd probably not be as long as they used to be. I don't want a whole episode unless it's a really big movie, or I feel there's things we need to discuss, or someone brings something to my attention about it. It'll probably just be a short review, which you'll probably find it more on my YouTube channel from now on for reviews, because I don't want the show completely taken up by reviews. I want to save more room for topics, and that's what we're going to do now. So my topic this week is to do with video game movies. Of course, you just have Detective Pikachu. Everyone's talking about Sonic being delayed and redesigned. I wanted to examine why video game movies suck. And there's a lot of reasons, obviously. It's not like I've cracked the code here and be like, this is why they suck. But I just found it an interesting discussion, and whether or not video game movies can get better, or whether or not it's a kind of a fool's errand at this point. So this is our feature this week: why video game movies suck. Hitman, Assassin's Creed, Tekken, Max Payne, Super Mario Bros., Resident Evil, Street Fighter. You'd be forgiven for thinking this was a list of some of the worst films of all time, but it is in fact a short list of the video game franchises that have tried and failed at the cinemas, commercially or critically. Soon enough we'll have two more video game movies looking to break the curse: Detective Pikachu and Sonic the Hedgehog. Yet the question stands: why is it that video game movies suck? That might seem harsh. I'm sure you might like the Mortal Kombat movie, or find a guilty pleasure in the Resident Evil movies. Personally, I didn't find the Tomb Raider movie with Alicia Vikander all that bad. But the point stands. The reputation for video game movies precedes itself. Some of the worst reviewed films of all time have been based on games. They've also not exactly been financially successful. The highest grossing video game movie at the box office was Warcraft, which was widely derided and still considered a flop, with most of its money coming from China, and probably lost money when all was said and done. Grossing just $433,537,548, and that's the highest grossing video game movie ever, which is pretty paltry by most standards. which might offer our first hint at why video game movies haven't been great to this point. When one medium consistently fails to deliver a significant return on the investment, then why invest at all? It might suggest why some massive video game franchises have not made it to the big screen, but it also suggests why not much effort is put into video game movies in general. Video game movies might offer Hollywood a chance at a quick buck, but there's bigger bucks to be made, so maybe putting the effort into a video game movie is a fool's errand. When there's so many movies out there that can turn a quick profit by cashing in on name recognition, perhaps Hollywood isn't all that pressed about making a great video game movie once they can turn a little profit. After all, the major merchandise sales will no doubt benefit the game developers more than the studios. So what about the video game companies? Do they have a bigger interest in getting the movie right? Well, let's ask Alan Core, head of Ubisoft's European operations, about the goals with the Assassin's Creed movie. We're not going to earn a lot of money from it. It is a lot more of a marketing thing, and it's also good for the image of the brand. Although we will make some money, it is not the purpose of this movie. The purpose is to bring Assassin's Creed to more people. Did that quote get you excited to watch the Assassin's Creed movie? So yeah, for a video game company it's about their brand, and for the movie company it's about trying to capitalise on the recognition of that brand. A great movie isn't necessarily the priority of either side, just a small profit and a boost in recognition. So why does video game name recognition not seem to work as well? Well, it could be a few factors. For one, it may be the fact that the audience they're aiming at, the gamers, well, gamers are quite a principled bunch, sometimes to a fault. Their allegiances to brands or franchises can be fickle. If a company has made a questionable choice with a franchise they don't agree with, well, movie studios have consistently made questionable choices in adapting video games, so it seems rather unlikely that some of your core audience would support an unfaithful adaptation. Not only that, but the people who have supported this have essentially already played the definitive version of the story, oftentimes with voice actors, big budget spectacle, and a larger, longer, interactive narrative. Why pay money for a more sanitized, slimmed down version? Not to mention that the interactive component means people craft a real connection to the game, especially those with RPG elements. When you at times spend dozens of hours in this virtual world, why bother spending more money for another 2 hours for a cheap imitation of it? The interactivity of this world is lost in adaptation. You're just giving a visual representation of something that was already visual. When you look at a book being adapted, for example, we have a medium that only exists in our mind, now getting a visual representation, which adds to the appeal of adapting it. With a video game, you're making something that already exists in a visual form, and as graphics get more impressive, the line between film and video games are closer than ever, so what's the point in adapting it? This would leave the casual audience to support the movie. When you look at the choices in what they've adapted, those are also some questionable choices. Some of these series were well past their heyday by the time they made it to cinemas. Max Payne came out 5 years after the last game. Rampage hadn't had a game since the mid-2000s, and was mostly inspired by an arcade game from the 80s. My point being that some of the franchises are not exactly in the public consciousness. That also goes for movies based on games that are simply less relevant than they were years ago. A Minecraft movie is coming, but by the time it reaches cinemas, the game will be even further past the heights of its success than it already is. And sure, Angry Birds did well enough to get a sequel, but had this come out when it was huge, it would have performed much better. The game industry simply moves really fast. Major franchises will always exist and can perform well, but some have already passed their peak long ago, which will only alienate casual moviegoers. It's not just an issue in video games, plenty of properties get adapted past their point of relevancy and result in a commercial flop. There's also the fact that it's now become well known to general audiences that video game movies aren't good, and that can only hurt their chances of success even more. Maybe it's a case of Hollywood picking the wrong games in that case. Some of the best selling games out there don't have movie adaptations, and when you look at the ones that do, it's normally franchises that have always been a staple, but are also often inconsistent in their quality. In other words, they're not adapting the best, they're adapting the best known. Need for Speed, Tomb Raider, and Resident Evil, these are all franchises that have been going for nearly 20 years. And in other cases, it's games that have frequent entries, so they will be well known to audiences. Not necessarily the best options to adapt. Not that those series haven't had good games, but the point is, there are plenty of good games that they're less likely to adapt, as they are comparatively more obscure. While this has its benefits, there are drawbacks to this approach. For one, in a series with so many entries, where do you start? How much of the game series do you bring over? Which elements work for a movie, and if you remove some of them, are you taking away from what makes the game special? After all, a game is no good if the gameplay is no good. So that only leaves a story. And some of these stories for the adapted games aren't necessarily special when filtered through a Hollywood lens. Resident Evil becomes your standard zombie apocalypse movie. Hitman becomes a bland action movie. Tomb Raider becomes Indiana Jones Light. In other words, movie studios can take video games that aren't necessarily known for their strong stories and use them to brand an otherwise forgettable film. That's not just pointing the finger at film studios though, as many games took inspiration from cinema to begin with, and thus can't help but feel stale and unoriginal when turned back into a film. So what about the films with stories that are considered great and original? What about BioShock, Horizon Zero Dawn, Metal Gear Solid? Well, in many of those cases, what makes them special is the worlds they have created, and the time they have to establish them. The narrative approach to story differs greatly in both mediums. Most movies have a linear narrative, while games can have a more divergent one. The player can explore or learn about the world from files or character interaction in some cases. Side quests flesh out the universe. In general, a story can at times stray from the main driving force in a game to better establish the world without ruining immersion or interest due to its interaction with the player. Regardless, let's look at one of the games with a good story. BioShock. BioShock was a violent big budget game that incorporated philosophy and horror into a massive underwater utopia. Sounds expensive, right? Well, that was the problem. They actually tried to make this one, and the budget would have been $200 million and warranted an R rating. Doesn't sound like a great investment for a studio. Oftentimes, the best narrative games work as they have hours to establish the environment and the character. In BioShock, audio logs and exploring the world around you allowed for a better understanding of the City of Rapture and our antagonist. Not to mention the twist at the end would be less impressive on film, as it banked on the player controlling the character and unknowingly being influenced into doing so. As such, at best a movie will be a watered down version of the game. So the more ambitious video games may just stay as that. Not to mention that most games cater to an older demographic, and to retain that would mean a more adult rating on film, if it were faithful, and that would cut into profits even more. So while games can take the time to both establish the world and tell a story, a film would likely have to sacrifice or lessen one of these aspects, which would ironically hurt both the story and the world of the game, and the film, as a whole. That's not the only issue, and difference between the mediums that causes issue though. It again comes down to interactivity, but in a different sense. Video game characters, at least the lead character, are often devoid of personality. And that sounds harsh, but it's logical. Having a character as a blank slate allows them to be a surrogate for the player. Think for example of RPG characters in Fallout or Mass Effect. You decide your character, but it's not just RPGs that suffer from it. In Half-Life, one of the most loved games of all time, our lead is Gordon Freeman, a mute. And really, he's only there to represent the gamer. Ditto for Chell in Portal. For a game, it speaks to the level of control and freedom a gamer has while playing, but in a film, it creates issues. It means either a new character must be created or developed on, or that a secondary character needs to become the focus, both of which will mess with the flow and structure of the established story. Take for example Doom. Want to know what the guy from Doom is called in the game? Doom Guy. Yeah, not too deep, because it doesn't need to be. He doesn't speak, he doesn't have a real name, because you are the real character. He's meant to represent, as creator John Romero says, the player itself. So when you make a movie, what do you do? Well, for Doom, they created multiple Marines, as you can't have much of a film with one character the whole time. That means the way people connected to the game was erased. How did that go? Well, to quote Roger Ebert's review, Doom is like some kid came over and is using your computer and won't let you play. In other words, it's missing that key component that made you love the game in the first place, the interactivity, the player. Other movies had the opposite issue, with too many characters and not knowing where to quit. Fighting games work with an ensemble as you need variety in the gameplay and the backstory is often implicit. In a movie, how do you balance all these characters without cutting out one that is pivotal to the plot? Not to mention, you must assume every character is someone's favourite and must be done justice. However, in general, if there is a character we loved from a certain game, we have a personal connection to them, as we played as them, or in some cases given them their attributes and qualities, and they will never truly be our character when we see him on the big screen. In closing, the video game movie curse could well be on its way out. Perhaps as Hollywood looks to learn from its mistakes, but whether it can ever be truly defeated is debatable. With middling returns on investment, there's little reason to use a video game movies as anything more than a quick buck on a licensed movie. Hence why oftentimes we get movies based on longer running, well-known properties as opposed to more original games with good stories. Movie studios are seemingly content with a modest hit, as costs are generally not too high, and a video game studio seemingly is happy as it boasts brand awareness. Perhaps the biggest issue is the difference between the mediums being so vast. Games have time to establish the world and can take a more branched approach to storytelling. The characters of games are also generally used as a surrogate for the player, and can therefore be devoid of characteristics or personality. Due to this, significant changes must be made, and to an audience that has already played the definitive version of the story in a more interactive and deeper environment, why would they be interested in seeing a watered down version? As the video game industry grows even more and the graphics get better, and the line between both continues to blur, the question may move from why do video game movies suck to why adapt video games at all. Well, there you have it. That's why I think video game movies suck. I'm sure people will agree and disagree. If you want to tell me what you think, or maybe you have different opinions, or have any thoughts or in general about the show, or maybe about Godzilla, which is coming out this week, you can hit me up in a number of different ways on Twitter at pop_cult_pod, Instagram popcultpod, all one word, Gmail popcultpod@gmail.com, or you can join the Facebook group Pop Cult Compound. What else can you do? Oh, you can go to YouTube and you can leave a comment there. As I said, I'm going to be putting up an Aladdin review along with a couple other things. I'm working on some stuff that I'm very excited about if I can get my head around them. And of course, lots of reviews are going to go straight to YouTube from here on out. Sorry that the show is a bit longer. I'm hoping it's going to be a bit tighter going forward, but again, I had a whole month to catch up on. And what can I say? At the moment, at least, it feels good to be back. And hopefully, if you enjoyed this, recommend it to a friend, or on iTunes especially. You know, if you can subscribe all over the place, but if you're on iTunes, give us a rating on iTunes. I'd really appreciate it. So anyway, that is it. That is the return. We don't know when we're going to be back. Probably sometime next week. We'll talk a bit about Godzilla, and that'll be our featured topic as well. We're going to talk a little bit about Godzilla. But what? Well, I'll have to keep you guessing and keep you in suspense, but I hope you come back, because I cannot spell cult without you.